tour recently, and I can't tell you how amazingly great it is. I got home very late last night to the beautiful unfractured Finger Lakes. This is my home. So I want to tell you about the best meal I think I've ever had in my life. And it happened a couple of weeks ago in far eastern Romania along the Moldavian border, the most impoverished region of all of Europe. I was standing in a farmer's field. He was weeding by hand his corn, which was intercropped with soybeans. He was an all-organic farmer, and he was able to sell his produce at value-added prices in regional markets because he was an organic farmer. And so while he was explaining his farming system to me through a translator, his wife brought out cheese that was made from the milk of his sheep and goats, and the sheep and goat milk were mixed together to make this cheese, and it was served on bread from his own wheat. And I've never tasted wheat and cheese together that tasted as amazing as this. So I said something in complimenting the food to the farmer and his wife, who were not only grew all this stuff, but knew the art of cheese making and knew the art of bread making. And what was translated back to me is, well, now our village of Punjest is inside of you, and now your spirit is here on our land. So for them, it was all a big community plus the food. They were very proud. They don't have cash, but they grow all this amazing food, and they have amazing wine there too. This is a big wine growing region. So I had a chance to sample their local wine. Can't say it's as good as Damiani Lemberger, which happens to be my local favorite, but I was praising of their wine anyway. So that was my food experience. Let me tell you something else about this village of Punjest. Let me tell you about the road going into the village of Punjest. There's one road. It's like Route 96 going through my village of Trumansburg. It becomes the main street. It's the only way in and out of this village. It's 5 hours from the capital, Bucharest. Along this road are a series of, so all the houses are right off the main road. They're made of traditional materials of brick, which are, the people make themselves from clay and straw, very biblical materials. And in between the front doors of those homes off the road and the edge of the road, which is a 2-lane road with no shoulders, are the drinking water wells. Not everybody has their own well. There's a few scattered along the edge of the road, and it's like spigots at a campground. You walk every day to the nearest one and fetch your water. And these wells look like something out of a Disneyland movie, or look like the lawn ornament that my neighbor has in their front lawn in Trumansburg. I've never seen actually one like this that actually works, that people rely on. The big round stone circle that's about 3 inches in diameter with a little pointy roof over the top and a wheel that you turn to make a chain go up and down that you put your bucket on. And then you open the lid and you look down, and about 10 meters or so below is the water table. There it is. And so every day along this road come old women in their kerchiefs and their buckets to fill the water for the family. Nobody has any running water in their homes. Or children come with their buckets. So the old ladies and children are the fetchers of water in the village of Punjest. In addition, the hills above the village are full of springs, naturally occurring artisanal springs. And so these are tapped and piped, and water is brought down to the edge of the road where there are giant stone troughs, and that's where the animals drink. So all of the goats and the sheep and the livestock, people don't have cars, they have horses. So those are also driven along, usually by a child or an older person, because the sort of able-bodied, young and middle-aged adults are all out in the fields working. So the old people and the children then drive the livestock along. They drink from these troughs, which are fed by these springs that are located up in the hills. The nicest well is the first well that you see as you approach the village, because this well is not only bigger, but it's inside of a little house with 3 walls, and it's inside there's art all over the walls, and there are also candles with matches to light. And instead of just having a chain, there's actually a bucket on the chain provided for you, and there's a cup on the wall on a nail. and that's called the Traveler's Well. So this is provided for any person coming into the village so they can get out of the weather, whether it's rain or sun, and they don't have to bring their own bucket. It's there for you, and there's a cup for you, and the candles are so that you can pray and light a candle for your ancestors while you're in there. And also look at all the art. So you get all your needs met, your spiritual needs, your artistic needs, you get a drink of water, you get out of the elements, and so on. They're so proud of this water. They think it's the sweetest and best water in the world. So that's the well on the near end of the village. When you walk through the village, there's another well on the far end of the village. That's a gas well. Chevron put it in there. It's the very first fracking well in all of Romania. And the people had fought so hard all October, November, and December to try to keep that well from being built. They were beaten after they attempted to simply camp out on the site, on the pasture where the well was going in. And against all of their efforts, this well was built. And if it weren't for that well, it would have been totally silent in Punjab, because the people don't have cars, they have horses, there's no engines, there's no tractors, but this drill just going and going and going, 24/7, you could hear it everywhere. And the people said there is no more silence now in Punjab. The sound of the fracking comes up to us in the night in our sleep right through the floor. And I saw trucks servicing this well, flying up and down the road, full of horse carts, like the Amish, only without reflective signage on the back of their cars. People having to share this road with these kind of murderous fleets of trucks. So the reason I went is because these folks put together a video called SOS Punjab, and because I had been invited to speak about fracking in Brussels, in the halls of power, in the EU Commission, I felt like when somebody sends out a video called SOS, you respond to that, right? It's a distress signal. So I just went at my own expense just to say I was sorry. To say I know that Chevron is an American company, that we too, in my village, live in a place with cheese and artisanal bread, with Wide Awake bakery bread that feeds my family, and wine, and we're fighting too. And we're in solidarity with you. That's all I wanted to say. So when they heard I was coming, they said, would you talk to us about the health effects of fracking? So there was an outdoor stage that was built. I gave a little lecture, it was translated, and then the people said, walk with us down our road, we'll show you this well. So we began to walk together. A woman who's about 4'8" tall held my hand. My son was with me, and as we walked toward the well, 30 different military police arrived. They just kind of came out of the bushes, filled the road, pulled fencing across the road, and simply closed the only road in the village, preventing people from traveling through their own community. People were angry, and some people tried to remove the fencing and say, this is our road, this is our village, this is our community, we want to walk freely and show our guests our community. And I saw at point blank range pepper spray come out and spray old people and children, some as young as 7 and 8 years old, point blank range in the face. People were choking, people were coughing, people were vomiting. Elijah and I got a little bit of it, not too bad, we retreated quickly. But I saw essentially a military police force of a government being used as a private security force for a fracking company that was an American company. That's what I saw there. That's what I'm documenting there. But then I came back to the United States, and I just came back late last night from the deeply fracked state of Pennsylvania. I had a chance 2 days ago to actually stand on a fracking well pad site and ask questions. And I went to another place too, which is a place where after they frack, all of the raw gas comes out of the ground. Remember, there's a lot more down there in the shale than just methane, which is natural gas. There's also propane, butane, benzene, ethane, formaldehyde, toluene, all these ancient sea creatures that used to live here when this was an inland ocean 400 million years ago, turned into bubbles of all kinds of stuff. So when it comes out of the ground, all the natural gas company is interested in is the methane. That's what we burn. But the rest has to be separated out and stored somewhere. So I visited another village that's located in a valley above which on the top of a beautiful hillside was built a 100-acre refinery whose job it is to separate out all of the butane, methane, and propane from each other. It's kind of a giant distillery, 100 acres. And on this site were flare stacks, were giant tankers, the black ones that you see hooked up to trains, and then the white ones that you see that end up being part of trucks. So this is where then all the butane and the propane are separated out and shipped somewhere else, and then the methane is put back in a pipeline and continues on its way to market. So I heard and met with people who have become sick from this, who showed me their pictures of the black smoke pouring out, who told me about their livestock dying, who told me about what's happening to their farms, to their food, to their children, the nosebleeds. They showed me their air monitors so I could actually see the air pollution that these things create. So I don't know if that's the facility located not far from us here in Washington County, Pennsylvania, if that's where the methane and the propane are tanked up to be headed for us here in the Finger Lakes or not, because it's very difficult, as you know, to trace what industry calls chains of custody to figure out who's sourcing with who. But whether it's this facility or another one like it, what I know is that it's all coming at us here in the Finger Lakes. The idea is to take these old 19th century salt caverns beneath and underneath the west shore of Seneca Lake and repurpose them for the storage of all this excess propane and butane. It's called LPG, liquefied petroleum gas, as well as the excess methane, which is called compressed natural gas. And you might think that's crazy for all the reasons that Lou so eloquently just described to us. Our wine industry is the goose that lays the golden egg for us. Our organic agriculture, booming for us. It's the heart of our economy. It's who we are. They can't possibly, it seems unbelievable that it would make sense for them to come in and massively industrialize the Finger Lakes and use a bunch of abandoned salt caverns left over from Erie Canal days for this explosive stuff, especially when we look back in history and see that this salt cavern storage of explosive gases has a very bad track record. 10 of the 14 catastrophic accidents involving LPG were in salt caverns. People have died. Communities have been wrecked forever. So that surely it doesn't make sense to do it here. But folks, what I'm telling you is it's coming, absent our intervention. It doesn't have to make sense. All that has to happen is a giant corporation has to lobby their way in and get permission. And so far, they need 3 permissions. They need federal permission, local permission, and state permission. And they now, just in the last month, have obtained 2 of the 3. All right? FERC, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, has said yes to storing methane gas in our salt caverns here. And just the other week, the local Schuyler County Legislature came up with a resolution. It's a non-binding, non-legal thing. They voted 5-3 to say, yes, we want the other part of the project too, liquefied petroleum gas. And you also heard from Lou that one of the members of the legislature has a massive conflict of interest with the gas industry. But all that has to happen now is that the DEC and the governor have to give their 3rd and final permission. They've got the federal government pushing it, and they have now local cover because they've got a county legislature that says it's okay. But it's not just the Schuyler County Legislature that relies on this lake. It's a source of drinking water for 100,000 people. And we all know, whether our water comes from the Cayuga Lake Basin or the Seneca Lake Basin, that if there's a catastrophic accident that affects one winery or one dairy, we're all in this together. Who's going to come and vacation here now? So if we don't want that future, we need the science on our side, and we've got it. We need the economics on our side, and we've got it. And we've got to start talking to people and carrying this message out. But we also have to be ready to stand up and defend this place ourselves. So I want to invite you to a rally and a march through Watkins Glen on Bastille Day, July 14th. By signing in tonight and giving your email, we will follow up with you about the details of that. The details are still being planned. But I hope that you will come and speak with your voices and your bodies walking through the street to be a visual message. Because all together, we are still bigger than they are. And that's what the people of Pungest told me. that's what the people of Pennsylvania told me, is that once this thing comes in, it's really impossible to dislodge. Do what you can to keep it out now. So now is the moment for all of us to come to the aid of our beloved Finger Lakes. And for me as a mother, my son was born on the banks of the Finger Lakes. Some of you may remember the September Hill Birth Center. In fact, he was born in a bathtub full of Seneca Lake water. I didn't intend that. I was going to have him on land, but he came out before I could get out of the tub. So Seneca Lake water is my son's first habitat. It's where he spends his summers at the 4-H camp down there. It's a sacred place to us. We are all 65% water by weight. It's our the water of the Finger Lakes is in our blood plasma. It's our cerebral spinal fluid. It's the steam of our exhaled breath. This water is us. We are it. And what we love, we must protect. So I'm going to close by telling you about the best cup of coffee I ever had. The best cup of coffee I ever had was in the Chemung County Jail. Last year, when I spent 10 days incarcerated for an act of civil disobedience in front of those salt mines, my first attempt to bring attention to this issue and push back on it. There is no coffee, actually, in the Chemung County Jail. There's only Sanka, decaffeinated coffee. And it's sold at a very high price, a gouging price, like $7 or $8 for a couple packs of Sanka. So it's among the women I was incarcerated with, it was a prized thing that you get from the commissary. Now, I managed to mess up filling in my order from the commissary. I bubbled something in wrong, and so they didn't fill my order. So I didn't, the whole time I was there, I never had things like shampoo or any Sanka. So a woman shared with me when I finally got my TB test finished and I got out of solitary and I was able to join the prison population to celebrate. I was given a cup of Sanka in a foam cup, and it's stirred in with lukewarm water, just black. But it was given to me by a woman who was sharing with me what little she had. She was incarcerated. She was trying to get her son a kidney because he was having kidney failure. She was trying to use the payphone to do that. She was indigent, and she gave me a cup of Sanka, and we drank our coffee together. And I told her that my son had just written me a letter and said, "Mom, I'm really popular now on account of you being in jail." And Angela said, "Honey, you gangster mama now." So if we all need to become gangster mamas to defend this place, we all need to do that. All right, a couple more things that are lawful. This is an amazing document. It's over there. Don't Frack New York's Farms. It's jointly produced by Food and Water Watch and the Northeast Organic Farming Association of New York. It's everything you need to know about the rationale of pursuing this other future that we have in mind for ourselves and closing the door on fracking. You all don't need to read this, but I bet you know people who do. People in your churches, in your synagogues, in your business, and so forth. So this is for you to take a look at, but then to distribute. You can print out as many copies as you need to. In the back over there are my friends Yvonne Taylor